Actually, they're friends. They've met at Dayton. Tracy has Outdoors on the Air, and one of the first guys I watched. And if you guys watched, I told the guy, I go, we got a real ham on this week because he goes out in the snow and sets up a waiting.
Hey,
he
It's
was,
always snowing up there. You got no choice.
oh yeah, but you didn't have no choice. It's
Right.
either stay inside or go outside in the snow. But Tracy, welcome. Glad you could be here, and want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your channel, and then we'll get going here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate the invite. I've watched you guys for a number of years now. I have a lot of respect for the stuff you do, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. As for myself, let me just get. I've got a tiny PowerPoint presentation, and we're not going to stick to it too much, but just maybe use it as a point of. Discussion for various topics to spool off of, but just a bit of introduction. I actually started my YouTube channel in 2011. I'd been watching on YouTube, and I found it to be a great source of information for things like home repair and other things. And I sought out some of the ham radio stuff. And by the way, I've been a licensed amateur since 1991. But lifelong interest in ham radio. When I was 11 years old, I was given a little, I don't know if you guys remember those Archer Space Patrol base stations. These were like little 100 milliwatt plastic things with an AM radio built in and a tunable dial so you could go up and down the CB band. That's sort of how I got my kick, and the bug bit, and it never let go. I'm a part-time YouTuber, and as
Nothing
a
wrong with
result,
that.
don't have a lot of time for radio. It's kind of funny. I've got other things going on in my life, which sort of keeps me from getting out and doing the sort of thing that I want to do. And my focus on my channel largely is on portable radio. And the reason, one of the key reason is that I live in a small home. In a crowded suburban neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood. It's just all the homes are closely spaced. I don't have a lot of room to put up a decent sized HF antenna. So the only way I could get out and about and actually set up a proper HF antenna and have fun with radio was to take it out and set it up in the field. So I figured, hey, I've done some of this stuff. Why not share it with other hams and see if anybody else can do it? And that's where the encouragement part comes in. I sort of figure my channel's mission statement is, at the end of the day, hey, you guys can do this too. You guys who are sitting at home watching, you can do this too. You might think it looks hard and all, but you know what? There's a lot of fun to be had. There's information to be gleaned. I mean, you're exercising your gray matter and having fun. It's all about that.
I hear you, Chuck.
I'm
you
also
meant your brain, Chuck, not your beard, Chuck.
I'm also a low power proponent, and some
boy.
of that, and I understand one of the panelists here.
Here we go.
Maybe has
It's
a
gonna
contrary viewpoint.
He's got a contrary viewpoint to everyone.
He is a contrarian.
He's contrarian.
He's not picky, but he has. How
not,
many QRP radios do you have? Like 6?
A lot. And I'm actually going to go out of town for a couple days, and I'm taking my 705, which
Shame.
QRP radio. But I am taking 100 watt amp with me too. But I actually don't have any problem with the QRP stuff. It's just that there's some QRP enthusiasts that I think are a little bit over the top when pleading their case. And like one thing I talk about is a lot of times folks will conflate linear and logarithmic scales back and forth between watts and dBs.
Here we go on the soapbox again.
I'm always like, that's not really painting the picture right. But,
Ape, if you only have one argument, you probably should just stick with it, right?
well, I mean, I've got a whole list of them, but I don't have a problem with any power level in and of itself.
I just want to hear something new. I've heard this song before.
He's worn the shine off that record. Mm-hmm.
Well, one day when you guys
carpet.
grow up, you'll understand what I'm talking about, and then
There we go. There.
So I've always told people I can't wait to be a dirty old man but I can wait to be an old man. The OMs are ruining ham radio. Let me tell you.
Get off my lawn, you young kids.
What happened to our slides?
I took them off because you were ranting.
I'm not
I didn't
ranting.
want to. I didn't want to
You were
soil.
going
I didn't
full
want to
Molson.
tarnish.
That was like full
the
Molson.
slide deck. The trigger tape. That's right, Scott.
Sorry, I was sitting there talking muted because I was coughing. That's all right.
Now,
didn't have anything
by
to
the
do.
way, and Ape, I think you raise a really interesting point there. So why QRP? Why did I actually sold in order to buy? And then that's typically what I do. If I've got a radio and I'm making a transition, I don't collect radios typically. I sell one off to buy another. I had you guys
still
remember the
bad.
ICOM 7200, sort of
Yep.
like a mil spec type ICOM. Really nice radio, really liked that, but I wanted to get into portable operations. And I started doing some digging into it. And what I found was that, holy crow, in order to run this thing portable, I am going to need a big SLA battery because lithium iron phosphates weren't around back then. And they were expensive. They were heavy as heck. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I actually sold the 7200 to buy an FT817. Yeah, a huge change, right? But the whole point behind it was practical. It was that now I can get myself some small batteries. I can take this thing out into the field, and I can try something I really haven't tried before, and that's field operations with a low powered rig. And so for me, it wasn't so much of a I guess a philosophical or absolute minimum power for every contact. It was more about practical application working within a budget.
So you had that 817, and I think you sold it to your buddy or something like that, and ended up buying it back, right? Is that the story?
Absolutely.
You had
how
an
that one goes.
897, the bigger version of the A57, and you said I watched that one when you were using that, and you said that had very low power draw for a 100-watt radio.
Yeah, 600 milliamps.
Yeah,
Which is I know that so 100 I'm thinking amongst 100-watt rigs, I'm not sure that there's one that's lower in the broad market, if we talk about major manufacturers and those things. So that's what really attracted me to it. I did have an 857 at one point. I actually blew the finals on that. Don't ask.
He went from low power to too much power.
yeah,
exactly.
that antenna really wasn't resonant.
But I
Peg
went
all
to
the meters
890
but the SWR meter.
And if you guys ever had hands-on with an 897, that is a solid.
I haven't really.
Radio.
I had the 991, which was kind of after that, but quite
You
a bit.
got a picture in your slide deck of the 897 there.
I sure do. Let me see if I can get that on screen here.
Look at that
There we
rugged
go.
outdoor picture.
Yeah.
Those are for sale a lot at these, like when we go to Course Fest, there was quite a few. I almost bought one just to leave in my my trailer, so I had
think
something
it's just
that
a cool
was
looking
always
radio.
there. It is cool.
It is cool looking.
So normally they have the LDG tuner on the side. What do you have on the side of that?
That is the Yaesu, the actual Yaesu
Oh, the Yaesu
FC30. So
See, now that
if
looks
you
good.
can- Oh, it miles better than the LDG. Actually, the guy that I bought this one from used, and I tend to buy a lot of my radios on the used market. Is if you can buy something for 2/3 the price and it seems to be working, well, it's electronics. If you take care of it, it'll probably keep working. That Yaesu, you compare the LDG, which is of course a wide-ranging tuner. 10-to-1 SWR, you can get it down. With this one, maybe 3, maybe 4. It's more like a built-in tuner on a Yaesu radio, but that's the type of antenna that I
gonna say, I think
typically
it's
run
3.
with anyway, and it looks so darn good.
It does.
Yep, it does.
The other thing, so
Looks
just
really
a note for anybody who might be interested in the 897. I actually, when I sold mine recently. I finally, and a couple of things, a couple of reasons. Number one is, and probably first and
3 to 1.
foremost, is that display that you see there. They have a habit over time of developing what they call zebra line.
Right.
Yep.
So, and you can't get the replacement displays anymore. So if you have a radio like that, you get the zebra lines, you can't use the display. Now you got to be plugged into a computer to be able to use it. And of course, for a portable application, that's not a great.
I've got an 857. That was one of my first, probably my second radio I bought. I bought new and no problem with it. But I think the guys found
AliExpress has
you can replace.
They have the
screen.
screens.
Yep.
For the 857, they have replacements. I don't know.
857. I'm not sure about that one.
I'm looking on the Bay right now.
Did yours have?
Yeah.
You were saying yours had a problem, or the 857?
$65.
Yep.
Oh wow.
But that's not a that's not like switching out RAM in your computer.
That is not a
that's
trivial
that's a
change
real
out.
job.
Mm-hmm.
They say sometimes
it's
you can
fine.
fix it with just a heat gun too. That was part of the problem. That's a beautiful radio though. I've seen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those out there, and when you were saying that thing was such a low power draw, I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And my 857 is pretty low too, lower than the 891, but not by a lot.
Yep. No, good.
Tiny screen,
good
though.
rig. Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing about the 897. When I sold it, these things, a lot of people don't realize this about this radio. When I sold it to a VHF UHF contester. This guy lives on a hill. He's got a big tall tower. He's got the beams, everything else going on. He sought this one out because the 897s have a tremendous reputation for 2 meter and 70 centimeter single sideband performance.
Mm-hmm. That's why I've kept mine, because I like to do that, and nobody makes. Well, the only one you can buy is the 9700, but that's like really expensive for just a couple bands. Well, they came down finally. When they first came out, it's like, there's no way. And I was like, great, somebody finally came out with a radio like that again, because they used to make radios like that you could buy for 2 meters and for sideband, all that stuff. Now you have to buy a shack in a box, which I don't have a problem with. I'm just kind of waiting for Yaesu to come out with the predecessor to the 991A.
Tracy, what is that tuner that you have? What model Yaesu? Is that the 50?
FC30.
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 30? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a 3-to-1.
Chuck, on that note, here's I just like to think about stuff, right, guys? So I take a look at the FT710, and I've got one sitting here next to me actually, and I took it out.
Best deal right now.
Oh, it's a tremendous radio, and the reason, by the way, I chose it over an FT DX10, because a lot of people are just defaulting to the DX10, right? It's a beautiful radio, but it's bigger, noticeably heavier, and has about 50% more current draw and receive than the 710 does. And what I wanted to do was, okay, so I work here, I have a day job. I'm sitting in my home office here. I'm working away. I keep the HF rig on, and I listen to nets or other stuff as I'm pounding away. But take a look at this FT 710, and you take a look at the front face of it. Now you take a look at Yaesu's new upcoming rig, the FT1 FT. Boy,
FT1F, FTX 1F. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But now I'm taking a look at that, and it's kind of reminiscent of the 710.
It is.
And it's all modes, all bands. Well, what did Yaesu do with the FT817? They brought out the FT817, right? It was on the market for a few years. What came next? The 857, which was essentially the 817 100-watt version in a mobile form factor. Then they came out with the 897. So I'm sort of thinking to myself, I wonder if history is going to repeat itself here.
Yeah, our buddy John Kruk doesn't like us to speculate, but I've been speculating that 710 is going to be the next 991A, basically, because it's the same exact size. It's the same exact size. I mean, actually, it's a hair smaller, I think.
They're gonna call it the 711
or a hair bigger. Yeah, the 711A.
It don't have 100 watts. It's got a big gulp.
Yeah, I kind of hope they do, but I don't know how I'm gonna swing that. So,
well, if Kathy's watching, you ain't, because now she's.
I know, and Tracy already said he gets rid of his radios, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope she's not on right now.
And you're a hoarder.
She watches. I watch. Not really a hoarder, but I've got my 3000 back there.
Say.
It's really hard to sell that, because that was my first really good radio I ever bought. But my 710 sits on the desk all the time right now, because I'm trying to learn it a little bit more, but I still can't figure out how to get the. I had a problem on this one, getting the different. When you bring the volume up on the receive.
Oh, you
man.
busted,
Caught.
old man.
Man, she is
Morning,
here.
Kathy.
Hey,
I better
Kath.
get up.
Hello.
All right, we'll let Tracy get back to it, and I'm just getting myself deeper in trouble here. As usual.
and
I'm good
as
at
somebody who's walked that road 100 times, Chuck, I get it.
it. She's pretty good. The reason I have the 3000 is because of her. I was going to buy the 1200, and I go, if I buy this one thing and put in this radio, it'll be almost a 3000. She goes, then why don't you just buy the 3000? And I didn't ask any questions, say anything. I walked
Done.
up. I'll take a 3000, sir. Yep. The wife says I can buy. I'm taking it.
Right.
And which is a great radio.
Tracy, what's that flag behind you? What's going on with that flag?
So, okay. So they're now calling that the white supremacist flag here in Canada. It is the original.
Oh, we've got one of
Canadian
those.
flag.
You must be in Southern
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got one
it
of those in the southern United States.
It is the original Canadian flag. They call it the Red Ensign.
Nice.
It's as soon as I heard it was being called the white supremacist flag, I had to go out and buy one. No, but seriously, I've been into flags for a long time.
Vexillology.
I want to ask you guys a hypothetical question. The
42.
American flag is iconic, right? And it's got a real history to it. What if you elected in a government and they said, you know what, the flag's kind of offensive to some people, so we're going to change it.
Well,
that's
that
what
happened
happened
4
in
years
Canada.
ago.
That's the United States. Yep, that's the way it's been.
That
probably
happened
gonna
in
happen this
Canada
year.
back in the 60s. The then Liberal government, whose colors are red and white, scrapped this one that had a whole bunch of history associated with it. It's actually has the coat of arms, which depict First Nations people, English settlers, French
That's
settlers.
racist. Yeah, I can see that.
Just one of those things, and of course the Union Jack, because Britain and all that.
Sure.
But they said, nope, it's offensive. We're going to get you a new Canadian flag. And at that time, if I remember correctly, they also scrapped the old national anthem, which used to be the Maple Leaf Forever, and came out with "O Canada," kind of an okay song, I guess, but it wasn't the original national anthem. So we have this tradition in this country of scrapping our history and kind of reinventing things to
Yeah, you're not alone.
not offend.
Well, it's not just like North America or United States and Canada that do that. Over time, whenever a group of people have taken over another group of people, the first thing they would do is go burn their libraries, right, and eradicate their history. And they do that to erode their identity, as an individual group of people. And it's terrible. I like history. I like listening to like a lot of the history podcasts and stuff like that. And we lose so much by not understanding the plight of humans in different regions and the story of how we got to where we are. I just hate the fact that people want to tear down statues and burn books and just erase how we got to where we are.
It's if we keep going the way we are, a whole lot of countries, especially Western countries, because we don't change drastically like Middle Eastern countries or South American, for example. I'm probably offending somebody. I don't give a shit. We landed on the moon.
You offended me.
You woke up this morning. You offended somebody.
Right. I don't care.
Not just your wife.
From the country who walked on the moon. Okay. So
Yeah.
Well,
it's
they
like,
say we did.
We walked on Huntsville, Alabama soil. Yeah.
Tracy, you just got into a whole bag of crazy
There's
cats.
just some
this
stuff
morning,
that just
son.
doesn't make sense in that whole thing. Just saying.
Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
It was Stanley
But this-
Kubrick who filmed that, right?
Oh, it's like Demolition Man, right? If y'all remember that movie? Every
a great
restaurant was
movie.
Taco Bell, and nobody
Yeah.
could be mean to anybody or offend them or any. I don't remember all of it, but I remember every restaurant was Taco Bell.
Yeah, and the shells.
Yeah.
Oh, man, Taco Bell's
Oh,
terrible.
right, the 3 shells.
I don't remember that part.
So that SC30 is good for a 5-1. I looked it up.
Back to ham radio.
Back to ham
but
radio.
what?
here.
This ain't
I-
Clubhouse.
it's a-
I looked it up
It's a-
on
it's a
DX
5-1.
Engineering. DX
5-1.
Engineering says it's 3-1. Who's gonna
Yeah,
Who's gonna
you know
argue
what?
this one?
Okay, I'll go with them because I went with Gigaparts, so I'll go with DX Engineering is probably correct.
giggle parts?
And
Gigaballs.
from field experience, G5RV not really going to work with that tuner.
Right.
An off-center fed, yes.
I tell you what, the tuner, well, in my 991 and the 710 is really, we've got that Poseidon antenna. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yep.
That with the
Sounds like a
the
nice
core we went with, it'll tune 80 to 6. And I know a few people with 7300s have had problems
Don't
with
do
like
too much 80 on it though.
Yeah, well, I've actually heard really good signals on 80 at decent distance.
I've heard
I
this
mean,
guy on 80 did a little, call the fire department type stuff.
He
well,
did.
yeah, but it was wrapped around his tree, all the wires.
Yeah, we
It wasn't
built
good.
a.
He was trying to build a not a trap, but a coil around the tree, and it didn't work very well.
Yeah, we have a antenna stuff that we sell tracing. We have one that's like a takeoff of a Rybakov, and I had had it mounted close to a tree, and I guess the wind blew the tree into the wire, and one of the branches got wrapped around there a little bit. Ooh. And I'm just oblivious to the real world, and so I'm sitting there hammering away on 80 meters, and and then I went out the next day and I looked at the core, and it was they're normally green, and it had like a rust color to it, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the thing rusted because of rain or something. And I go and look at it, and it's just cooked. I mean the
FT880.
But did it still have that minty taste to it, or was it kind of more like barbecue?
it was like a toasted mint at that point.
Toasted mint. Okay.
It's become my favorite camping antenna because it takes up no space. It
It's
only
so
has to go
easy to deploy.
25
That
feet.
25 foot is great because I've got a 41 foot here, and I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. It's going to be an infinite sloper. Like the sag in the wire is going to touch the ground.
It's
That's
gonna
how
be
much
part
it's
of
going to
it.
slope.
Tio, I wanted to ask you. So I'm sorry, we're digressing a little bit here, but I love the video you did with the mast on the back of the pickup, and then the wire coming over. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, geez, there's got to be some interaction between that antenna and the body of the truck. And
There has to be. Yep.
But
It doesn't matter is the short answer to it. Like, I mean, as hams, we chase the ideal goal. Must be 1-to-1 on all bands, on all frequencies, all the time. And me, I chase, completion. I want to make the contacts. I want to get the job done. And if you're familiar with the desert soil out here, the RF ground is feet below dirt, as opposed to most places where the RF ground is really close to the layer of the topsoil. There's just nothing else around you to interact with you, so you need to have something to, push off of. And I didn't think about it at the time, but I really should go back and figure out, where north is on the compass versus, takeoff angle on the antenna and so on. And it was more an exercise of, can we get this job done here? Because I ran a regular vertical with a ground plane and had some trouble with it. And Don saying, thank you, Tracy, for your channel. Loves what you're doing, and all videos are
Thanks,
good.
Don.
And I watch every one of Tracy's videos.
Thanks for the
Thank you,
super chat, Don.
Steve, a follow-up question. So the effective ground is below ground level in the desert. By the way, I love the desert. I've only been in there for 4 hours. I was on a business trip to Las Vegas. I had to get out and see the desert because, of course, I'm an outdoors guy. It's completely different from anything I'm used to. I just fell in love with the desert. Haven't been back since. Can't wait to get back. But okay, so ground level is not ground level from an antenna perspective. The ground level is actually below. Does that mean typically then you don't have to get your antenna up as high as you would in other geography?
Exactly. It's the same as if you're up on top of a mountain peak, because on our test, I don't know about your test, but on our ham test, they tell you if you're on the mountain peak and you put the antenna here, your takeoff angle has changed because the ground is sloping away from the antenna. So it's the same thing. You have to deal with the environment that you're in, and we talk about the 468 divided by the frequency in megahertz is the length of the dipole, blah 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 blah, and then you get it out and you hang it in the trees and your SWR's off. Well, why? Because the foliage on the trees, the moisture content, the soil, the RF ground, all this stuff interacts. Like, what is it, Abe? You call it Kastler's law. I don't know if Kastler calls it that, does he?
He does. Everything affects everything.
Yeah. So like it physics meets the real world, and the real world can be measured, but it can't be absolutely, like even gravity. We talk about gravity being a constant. Gravity's not a constant. Gravity changes all day long. And a friend of mine, my Elmer, he's like, yeah, I measure gravity every single day by stepping on the scale.
Right. Didn't you say you didn't even put the radials out for that one?
0 radials. The truck was
See,
the radial.
I think the truck was the radio because it's just like your radio. You put your antenna in the middle of your truck top, and that's supposedly the best spot, or your car. That's the middle of your car, right?
You see that face?
I think it's doing the same thing there because he did well with it. And I
Well,
have
the
to
truck
say,
was
most of the
electrically
time-
connected to the antenna, yes.
Yeah. So
Because that
And our
2-meter
buddy-
stud on the front is bolted to the fender.
Brickham Fall bought one of the new Gigaparts 30. I think it's a 32 is what they call it, but
Carbon fiber pole.
or
What's he
33.
thinking? Prep
It's
ham?
carbon
one
fiber
also.
though, and I told him make sure
I
you
bought
pull
one.
that
Sorry,
away,
Paul.
slope it just a little ways away. nothing against carbon fiber except for verticals. They just it affects them.
100% done.
Well, we were talking a little bit about the real ground versus all
I
the
like
sand
that
and stuff
idea.
on top of it, and how that impacts the height of an antenna. That's more of a factor. At least my understanding is more of a factor for horizontal antennas. Vertical antennas are a little bit of a different story in terms of that height above ground, because with vertical antennas, the more that you get off of the ground, the more you should think about having a real ground plane on there that's tuned right to the frequencies that you want to operate on. So that becomes a
Exactly.
little bit
Yep.
of a little bit of a different challenge. And when I was looking at what you did with the truck, because I get real worked up over ground planes and stuff like that, just
Oh,
You
for
do.
whatever reason.
Yeah,
and
you
and what I was thinking about is the magic carpet, which was all the rage about a year ago, where people were taking screening, and now they're doing it with Faraday cloth. Seems like a rather expensive solution for that, but
Super expensive to do that.
and
though.
putting down small
That's when I
patches
forgot
of
about
this to help with the capacitive coupling to the ground, because I think a quarter wave vertical is around 30 ohms, maybe 35 ohms naturally without any ground plane. So then people will add the ground plane to actually get your impedance matched a little bit better. But with the things that, and I don't want to speak for him, but what Tio was doing is like a lot of times what he likes to do is show, hey, you might pull up to a park to do your POTA activation and you have a parking spot, and maybe you want it facing northeast, but it doesn't. And your time limited, get out there and get your activation in, right?
Yeah, so that's the video that we're talking about. I'll drop a link in the chat.
Yes, and
I like how you
our
highlighted the
antennas
wire.
are still on
You
sale. It
can't
says right
see
there on the
antennas,
screen.
man.
I listen, that was a good idea. I'm a fan.
I'm looking at this
No.
picture going, this shows
I know.
everything and nothing all at the same time.
I do mostly
Been there,
antennas,
done that.
and To's always telling me, he goes, you just can't photograph an antenna very well. I go, no, you can't. I got one
No,
off the
it's
roof
tough.
one time that worked really well.
Well,
But it
I
was
sent
a-
one.
it was bright
I went
orange.
and helped. I went and helped my friend Brad the other day install a step IR on a tower. There'll be a video coming out about that. I'll show you this picture. It's a beautiful picture, but at the same time, you can't see it.
Yeah,
So,
I always try to enhance them somehow. Just so
yeah,
you
I mean,
can-
look at that.
Yeah, you
Like
can-
that's wonderful.
it blends in.
The tower sticks out more than the antenna does, and this tower is awesome. This is a electrically driven tilt over tower. He just pushes a button and tilts it right over.
Jeez.
But I mean, like even if you zoom in,
You know, I got
there's an
one of
antenna
my
up
little
there.
Yagi
two.
one time at night because my phone flashed and it flashed off it at night and it came out really well. But other than that, it's really hard.
That's a beautiful antenna setuut. It's a great picture if you
Why
know
is
how
it-
to actually.
Why
look
is it
at
leaning over? Why is it leaning?
It's
Is it going up?
It's where he's standing to take the picture.
I was kidding. I knew why. Well, should we get Tracy back on his
Yeah, let's.
should.
his
So,
stuff here? Well, there you go.
guys,
I don't know.
I'd be
We
really
we took you out of order though.
no, that's all right. It's like this stuff was just fun for stuff to talk about. One of the things that I've come across recently, and I'd love to get your take on this, is we've got. I mean, there's a transformation happening, right? When I look back to how I got started in portable radio, selling a 100-watt radio to buy a QRP radio so that I could have enough battery power that was reasonably priced and reasonably sized. The only answer was QRP. These days, I think this is a game changer, and I'm not talking for everybody. So I posted this video a little while ago. And, so this is a 100 amp hour. They call it the Mini. For most people, there's my car in the background. There's a picnic table I'm sitting at. It's no problem for me to take that battery to that car. Now, it weighs about 20 pounds.
Yeah, you're not
but
huffing it.
It fits in an ammo can. So I've got a nice convenient handle for it. For most guys who are going out to a park, setting up an antenna, running POTA for a few hours, I just think, why are you even looking at 5-watt or 20-watt radios anymore if you can pull this battery out and a 100-watt, somewhat compact 100-watt rig, whether it's an 891 running at 100 watts or something a little bit larger like the 710 I used for the CQ Worldwide contest. I think this is a game changer for a lot of people. You don't have to buy a portable radio anymore. And, couple that with the fact that a lot of guys, and Ape, I know you know what I'm talking about here. They're using compromised antennas in the field. Now, you guys who are in the southern U.S., all right, you've got the benefit of the MUF on your side. Further down south you go, this, the better the propagation is typically. I mean, now we're at the solar maximum, and that's going to play havoc with a lot of stuff.
Right.
But we go back, we start heading back down, and things start to normalize a little bit. It's harder for me, where in my location, typically with a portable setup, to make decent contacts than somebody down south the U.S. Using the same sort of station. Now you take a portable station and a compromised antenna, could be one of these, a buddy stick, Wolf River coils, whatever this thing is. It's not the same as having, a dipole up at 25 or 30 feet. So
Right.
what do you do when you've got a compromised antenna? Well, you crank up your power.
Right.
That's going to help offset some of that. Guys, I've posed the question. What's your take on that?
But I do
I
think
think
that the battery stuff is a game changer, because if you were looking at 100 amps of sealed lead acid 20 years ago, you're really looking at 200 amp batteries, right? Because you only really do 50% depth of discharge.
Right.
And you're going to blow your O-ring out carrying that from that van to the table, right? I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Well, I think even for QRP, I mean, the lithium batteries for those guys are really good, because now you can buy a 10 amp hour battery that's the size of the old lead acids that weighs like, I mean, I bought one for my kid, my son, my grandkids' little car, and the dang thing, I thought it was empty because it was so light. It was bigger than it really needed to be.
This is a 50 amp hour battery.
Yeah, that's a good size now.
With a handle. And
Yeah. And it's like 15 pounds maybe. Like here's a 50 amper that I'm pretty excited about this one, to be honest with you.
Well, I put a 300 amp hour. I put a 300 amp hour.
I think it is. Yeah.
I put the 300 amp hour in my motorhome. I replaced 3 100s, 31s, and the weight of that one battery is about the same weight or a little bit lighter than one of the old batteries. So my
QRP
my
battery.
motorhome, yeah, right. And it probably run for days, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
15
and with
hours.
something like that 50 amp hour battery, if you want to build a case around it, right, you can add in, USB
Connectors, chargers, yep.
USB chargers and all that stuff. And just to tie in Chuck from last
Solar.
night, you can 3D print Anderson power pole connectors that pass in a battery case.
The panel mounts for the power
panel
poles. You can't
mounts.
3D print the power poles. I mean, you probably could, but I would question their strength and reliability over time.
Yeah,
with
I would
electricity.
3D print the poles, but the mounts. So instead of spending $20, $30 for that, so
Yeah,
you
it's
can
like
add
$30 a mount,
Yeah.
right?
You can add in USB-C, USB 3. You can have a 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter, 3 or 4, 5, 6 power pole connections.
Yep.
I mean, you can everything on one small battery. Build all
Don's
that
got a
into
great
50
point here,
gallon
too.
can, 50,
He does.
50 cal can. You're good.
Yeah, Don was suffering from an S9 noise floor forever, and got to add more power to overcome more noise.
That's an excellent point, Don.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing you were saying is about a lot of folks are operating compromised antennas, because I think what a lot of POTA is huge, right? And a lot of what folks are doing is they're trading antenna quality
Thanks, Tom.
for speed of deployment. And that's where you're getting a lot of these really shortened antennas with big coils on the bottom of them. And people say, "Oh, I got it to tune 1-to-1. It should be just fine." And I don't think they understand the amount of loss that they're actually getting in those coils, which is exacerbated with lower power levels.
That's right.
And I always joke around. I say, I've never heard anybody saying, "I'm really having trouble working his station. Let me turn down the power."
Right.
That just doesn't happen.
I broke up a guy in Japan on my last POTA. In Japan for California is not too bad, but there was a bunch of people calling him, and I broke in with like 20 watts on a dipole though that was
Shoot,
over
don't do
really
it.
good soil.
Yeah, and Chuck, on that note, so Ape, you made an excellent point. Fast, quick, whatever. This was a game changer for me. I I did some videos for a guy over in Holland who has a company called High End Company, makes some amazing high quality. The guy used to work for Bang and Olufsen. Don't know if you guys are familiar with that
Yeah.
old audio
Stereo
brand,
company.
right? Just really, really great quality
It
stuff.
was like the mirrored CD players back in the
Yeah,
80s, right?
yeah, just unbelievable. But he started his antenna company, and on his website, he had a photo of this thing. And I said, "Can you send me some more information on this? Because I am curious." And so he actually packed one up for me and sent it across to me with the PVC, with the straps you see here.
Mhm.
And I had what was this? This was a 40-foot spider beam mast. I can set this up in 3 minutes. Well, let's call it maybe 4. All right, but I can set that up, drop the mast in, affix the feed point of either an off-center fed dipole or a dipole. I can have this thing up in the air. I don't know, 10 minutes. And
So
I'm kind of slow. Now compare that with maybe something that's a few minutes quicker, but who's going to have the better signal? Relative power. Like if I'm running the same power as somebody running a Wolf Rivel coil, and I've got the apex up at 30 feet, then I'm going to be doing, as far as I'm concerned, for things like CQ Worldwide, which I do portable with Field Day. If I've got a station like this and I'm running 20 watts, and I used to, right before I got my 100 amp hour battery, I'm out there with 30 amp
Before
hour
he knew
batteries
better.
or even
So
smaller. So I'm running 20 watts. My 20 watt station is outperforming a lot of 100 watt home stations that have and dipoles set up at 20 feet. And there's a ton of those out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Tracy,
They
let
don't
me
have
sh-
Boy
let me sh-
Scouts up in Canada, do they?
Actually, they do, but they don't call
Okay.
you can't call them Boy Scouts anymore. They're Scouts.
Okay,
Oh.
because I don't see any knots there.
Androgynous
So-
scouts.
So Tracy, let me show you something. I've gone one step farther to be even faster than that setup. Okay, and there's a guy out now right now that's promoting this stuff because he saw it at my house at one time. But what I do is, because you can do it with 3D printing now, but I did this before I had a 3D printer, and this is a electric fence stake. This fits exactly inside one of my masts. So you take the mast out and you stick this in the ground. So that's all your guy lines right there, right?
Nice.
You throw the pole over the top, kind of the same thing you're doing, but I'm not setting up any guy lines. My guy lines usually will be the antenna itself. If I put up a dipole, now I've got guy lines at the top, right?
But he's messing
So
with a 40-foot pole over there, Chuck. I mean,
Yeah.
you ain't putting
Yeah,
no
well,
pole
okay.
in there.
Your pole is much
Okay,
shorter, Chuck.
okay. So
Sweet.
this is for that. This is a stake for
It looks like you're going
doing
vampire hunting over there.
concrete work. Now this is not something you're going to throw in your backpack. And I've seen them put them on little stuff like this, and it's like this is not big enough for a 40-foot pole, but this does. I do it all the time. Well, a 32-footer, and this is
That's
just
really
PVC.
Cool. Really
But now
cool,
with
Chuck.
printers, I've printed out some Census. I don't have any handy where they fit the pole. I was gonna put those out for people, but depending on where you buy these, even at Home Depot, they're different sizes. So basically, you just get the size, get it really tight, and then put 3 of them on there. From here. And if you take the bottom one and get it tight enough, maybe even glue it, when it goes against the ground and it sticks out a ways, that's really stable. And then even any antenna you throw up, though, is going to help. And I do our, Steve was there. I had our Poseidon up on this thing for, a week?
A week, yeah, at Yellowstone.
And never touched it.
What was
Actually,
the
Steve
soil
touched
like?
it.
Chuck, what was the soil like? Because the first thing I think about, and I know you've worked
Every.
through this, is if I've got soil, if I'm out at a park, and it's just regular soil, I even take a 17-foot telescopic whip, and I put it in a stake which looks similar, not to the same
Right.
diameter.
And I've
that
got
you've
the same
got,
thing on that.
and it
I know
just
what you're
goes
talking about.
over like this. So do those, you find the thicker ones hold the taller mass?
That thing's solid, and you are using, especially if you use a dipole, you've got, say you do a fan dipole, you can go 4 ways if you have 2 bands, right? If you separate them, it's super
So they're not really
fast.
guys, but they're stabilizers using the dipole.
Yeah.
They are
legs, right?
stabilizers, yeah. Same thing though.
Oh, that's very cool. I like that.
Yeah, your
There's-
dipole can be 2 or your 3 guy lines.
Yeah.
I want to,
I kind of got that off somebody else. What I want to do is figure out how to attach it. Sorry, Jim. But to use the PVC like you did, but have the stake on the bottom somehow. I've made those where it goes around the small poles, but that's just for a small pole. Go ahead, Jim. He froze.
I think Jim freezed up.
No way.
I might get that. You guys get
he
it?
got
You guys
One time
catch
he was
it yet?
happy and the camera wanted to catch it.
Right.
Yeah.
His internet is from Temu.
Yeah. He ordered a special this week.
You can say that again, Jim, because it didn't come through.
Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
Now he's on potato mode.
Yeah. Everybody play well. Yeah.
Well, moving
antennas
on.
are on sale, $10 off.
There it is. There it is. Start
Oh
over.
my gosh.
Okay.
Couldn't agree
Start over
more.
your internet. You're back.
I'm sure it's Saturday
Sort of,
morning. It's going to
sort
do it. Our Black Friday sale is on through November 30th, which ends next week sometime. I can't date on stream.
7 days.
7 days. 7 days.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. So $10 off of every antenna on coffeeandhamradios.com. Mugs
run out.
are going fast, and this is not marketing. There are exactly 2 left in the store, so if you want one, chop, because I'm shipping out all the mugs on Monday. I'm going to be boxing them things all day today, but
He's going to be really busy today.
we got 2 mugs left. Chop, people. Chop.
That's a judo chop he's doing there.
And did you get my package from me, Jim?
No, not yet. I'm hoping.
Oh, dang it. That's another
Not yet.
reason he's kind of holding off, because I sent him some antenna kits, so he can.
Well,
if we bought
already-
both together,
yeah, we don't have any combo orders at the moment.
good.
Well, we
Good.
did. I sent you those antennas yesterday because I didn't have antennas for it, but
Okay.
we have exactly 2 red mugs left.
Sorry, Trace. We have to do business once in a while to keep this
Gotta
thing
pay
on
the
the
bills.
air.
Got to pay the bills. Got to keep the
Gotta pay
lights
the
on.
bills.
Absolutely.
YouTubing ain't easy.
So Tracy, would it be safe to say that you're more of a dipole type guy than you are vertical?
Typically, yes. Yeah. Well, yeah,
He
absolutely.
likes the OCF.
It's
Right.
just, it's hard to outperform a dipole, right?
100% agree.
It
We
is.
get it, right? If you want the long distance, you're going to want some kind of vertically oriented antenna. But for the kind of stuff I'm doing, I'm setting up, and I want to throw up an antenna, and I'm okay with regional contacts. I'm not out there chasing DX every time I go out. My bread and butter band for most of what I've done, because the sunspot cycles have been dismal for the past number of years,
Right.
is 40 meters, right? It's like,
Oh, 40?
you want to get up 40 with a good signal, then you throw yourself up a dipole.
In California,
I saw that
20s.
you did a video where you were advocating for QRP potentially, but you were doing NVIS 40, right, for the for the use case, and I believe that was a dipole.
Yep.
I did a video a long time ago talking about verticals, and at the end of it, I showed modeling of a dipole, and actually a dipole at about a half a wavelength up actually has a better lower takeoff angle than a vertical.
Interesting.
The challenge is like you're talking about 40 meters. You got to get 60 some feet up in the air, right? And that's not an easy task.
Yeah, no,
especially
like even
portable.
with I've got a 50-foot. It's used to be. I don't know if they make them anymore. There's a German company called DX Wire that made a 50-foot dipole, and I know you guys are familiar with the spider beams.
Mm-hmm.
So spider beam makes their 12 meter, which is a 40-foot tall
Got one.
mast. Now, of course, everybody who's ever worked with one of these masts knows for sure you can't put the feed point at the
Right.
top of the mast, right? You've got to bring it down.
Right.
Exactly, Steve.
Yep.
You got to bring it down. So I run when I go out with my
Hey,
50-foot DX wire, I've got the feed point at 40 feet because it's not going to do one of those things. And that tends to work very well for me. Basically what you're saying, Ape, is that I've seen with that height, and even with QRP, you know what? It's guys, I want to share something with you. You've heard this a million times. If a QRP makes a station or makes a contact, it's the other station that's doing all the work.
Doing all the work, yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
I respectfully disagree, and I will
course.
tell you
Oh
why.
boy, here we go.
Here we
Uh-oh,
go.
here we go.
It's very
Make sure this
simple.
is recorded.
It's very simple. The
Hit
guy
the
who's
button.
doing all the work has a receiver. In order for your station to be heard at his end, you got to be putting something out there. And if you're running QRP and you're running a crappy little antenna, he's probably not going to be able to pick you out from the pile.
Yeah, Tracy,
if
but
you
that's
are
why you
running
got to say
with a
QRP
decent
5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
Every
Sorry?
time you try to make a contact.
No,
break
I
up the
never do
pile.
that, by the way. I don't use QRP in my calls. Yeah, at all.
That's
I'll
what sets
tell
the
them
ape-
afterwards
the ape
after I
off.
make the contact.
That's what sets the ape off. Is they're hollering QRP,
Well-
like telling everybody they're a vegan, right?
Well, it's like when you're in line, when you're standing in line to get something, and somebody's like, "Hey, excuse me, I'm in a hurry. Can I get in front of you?" It's like these QRPers when they're like, "Hey, I know there's a pileup going on, and everybody's out here having fun, but I need to cut in line because I'm operating low power here. So excuse me."
Right.
and they'll come in real late on it. And the guy's usually already making a contact with somebody else.
But we've all seen those guys who are running kilowatts who are dropping in, tail ending the last 3 letters of their call, right?
Yeah,
They
100%.
do it too. It's a free for all. Just it is what it is.
Well, it's
They're
kind
annoying,
of a sad thing that people just don't have any damn decorum.
Well-
You know, like our friend Carlos likes to jump out of airplanes with his radio and make contacts.
He
And
is
one of the
insane.
first
Cheater.
times he did it, everybody just talked over him the whole time, trying to, because they wanted to be like, "Oh my God, I got the contact from the guy in the plane."
Well, I got
Instead
it
of
5
letting
times.
people who are actually in the middle of a QSO with them keep going, and it's just it's so you see it all the time, right? It's just so
Oh
disappointing.
yeah.
Well, now for POTA, guys don't even wait for the guy to finish his conversation with the person he's talking to, and they're calling their call signs out.
Yeah.
You know, I
People
like
are
to think
jerks.
I can break those pileups anyhow, especially at home. Well, that guy in Japan that I got, he was now Tracy. I'm going to have to disagree a little bit. He had a 5-element 20-meter Yagi, so I'm pretty sure he was helping me. But I did break the pileup at 20 watts.
Well, that's it. You broke the pileup. Let's just truncate that. You broke the pileup, right?
Right.
So what were you?
Done.
Conditions may have been
Dipole.
ideal.
Dipole, our new one that we don't sell.
We don't know what conditions are like at a given moment, right? We think we know.
This little bad boy right here.
Well, they can
So-
change right any second.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could
And
sell it
could
any time.
favor you at that moment. But the bottom line is,
Except for
he
that one
heard
down
you.
there.
Yeah. It's but I'm glad you said the whole thing about the pole bending over. We sell our Mercury, which is a dipole that has the 1-to-1 up on the top of the thing, and we tell people on a 10-meter pole about 21, 23 feet, because that's where it's fairly strong, right? And a lot of people only have the 10-meter poles. And if you're putting that on a POTA 6, just forget about it, because it's just going to bend that thing to the ground, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what this one's for. This one has it's like 8 grams or 4 grams at the top.
Oh man.
But when you put that nylon,
Breaking-
it's going to thicken.
Breaking
it up.
news. Breaking news, folks.
Breaking
One left.
news. One left.
There
Damn,
can be
Jim's gonna
only
be-
one.
Make Jim
gonna
work,
get it?
guys. Make him
Who's
work.
gonna get it?
It's,
Good.
I'm going to be
Get his
I'm
butt
gonna
out
have
of the
a
shack.
giant box of mugs to take to UPS on Monday.
He's probably going to have to use the hand truck.
I got
he's
a
gonna have
cart.
to use
I
that-
got a
that-
wagon.
Oh, you got a wagon. Okay.
I got a little
Gonna
old
have to
man
use that-
wagon.
Battery for
wagon to,
counterweight.
Dayton or wherever we go. Bring that wagon.
I would, but I'm afraid someone would want to ride in it because his feet was tired. Again.
What are you talking about? No, if you're toting
You
away.
should've
Between the
seen
two
it.
of you, Chuck, between
Tracy,
the
you
two of them,
should've
right?
Yeah, me, T.O., and my
I never
wife
compl-
walked the
no,
whole
no,
flea
no, no.
market at
I
Dayton.
was
And these
never-
guys, we got to go get a break.
Well,
No.
Chuck, you were walking the whole thing because you got lost more than once. I mean, let's just be
That is
honest.
a
I
true
was
statement
never
as well.
lost. I was looking at stuff. I was actually doing what you're supposed to do.
You were
which
attack chatting every geezer with solar panels that there was.
That gal attacked me. Damn it.
yeah.
She
that
told me
gal.
what I wanted to do wasn't what I wanted to do, and I'm like, you're wrong. I do want to do what I want to do, and you're wrong. She wants me to carry glass solar panels around in my trailer
nerve.
that I keep motorcycles in, instead of having to
Children
fold out
behave.
ones.
Cool story.
He's not
bro.
bitter about it, though.
I'm not. Damn it. My
on
wife
that-
just walked
sorry.
away.
Tom nailed it.
Just before I address the slide, guys. So here's something else I've been thinking about with the with this advent of cheap lithium iron phosphate batteries, high capacity. I just, for me anyway, while I've pondered buying into solar, panels and whatnot for a number of years. I failed to pull it. Now I'm thinking I have no need to, not for what I do. It complicates things, right? I'm trying to
Free
keep things.
recharge, man.
I've got a 100 amp hour
Use it afterwards.
battery that will run my
all
power
day.
hungry FT710 for days and days and days.
Yeah, but with the solar panel, you could have a 5 amp hour battery you could carry with your pinky.
But nobody does that. Listen, and I love everybody, especially the POTA people. But Tracy is spot on. So you have people who will go out and set up their compromised antenna at the POTA site because they're like, I need quick, high speed performance. I need to deploy in seconds. And then they set up a solar panel to charge their 100 amp hour battery for a 30-minute activation that they're going to do. Right. And it's like, there is no way you're going to run out of the 100 amps, son. But they're like,
What if you forgot to charge it?
we focus on the wrong thing sometimes.
We know
backup battery. Good question, Chuck. Always everybody's got, 2 is 1, 1 is none, right? Always take a backup battery. I had a battery fail on me at CQ Worldwide a number of years ago. It was a brand new battery, brand new lead acid battery, fully charged, literally right out of the box. Got up there first, and I'm using the FT817. So it's not drawing a lot of juice. I'm listening. I'm hearing all these stations coming from everywhere. I got the stake camp all set up. Go to hit the transmit button, and it just cuts out. It's like, what on earth? Literally,
yeah, that's always it.
What
I took 3 batteries.
I had to
batteries
drive
last time.
back into town and somehow find another battery. So always 2 is 1, 1 is none when it comes to your power, gentlemen.
Well,
so we know
the 3 amps. Take 3 amps with me.
And solar panels are a great way to slow charge those batteries, but unless you're carrying big panels or a lot of panels, I mean, you're only getting 60 to 80 watts out of a solar panel.
I've got a little panel that you could throw right. It's one of those flexible flat panels. You can throw it right in your backpack or on your backpack. You'd be charging it on the way up to the soda.
It's going to charge. It's going to charge while you're not keying. It'll help replenish the radio. But
yeah, I don't know
that
a battery.
I don't know that I would think it's
solar panel.
Now, see, that's a really cool one. I like that because that is pretty small.
Pretty heavy though compared to mine.
Now,
but I mean, if you're
mine's not
full on
100. Mine's not 100.
If you're full on transmitting all the time, or you're doing FT8 while you're doing POTA, you're still going to run out of juice without something like what Tracy's talking about, without a 50 or 100 amp hour battery.
So I took a FT891, which we know is a power hungry mobile, not portable radio, and I took a 5 amp hour LifePo battery, and I got over 100 contacts on a Parks on the Air activation. It's all in, good operator skills and time management, and
your 5 amp hour battery was a bespoke built from Denko, right? I mean, it was. So I mean, let's just be a little bit honest.
So really, it's a 500 amp hour battery. Yeah. I do have a video of that, Chris. Let me find
a pre-production prototype model that is not available for retail sale, is what I think Ape is saying.
What I'm saying is, it's not like you're not buying a General So's 5 amp hour battery.
About. I mean, look, there's nothing. Look, I'm not hiding anything in this battery pack.
That doesn't scream pre-production at all, does it?
Yeah. Denko battery.
Take that on an airplane. Take that one on an airplane where they can see those wires hooked to something.
He's got that label. That right there. That's the money shot that gets you through TSA, because they see home printed label and they know it's good.
The only thing worse is write it out by hand, right?
Right.
Well, listen, before we run out of time here, I want to say, hey, Tracy, so you switched to the 705. Can you talk a little bit about what the thinking was there?
Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't going to buy one. I very seriously wasn't going to buy one. And when it came out, it's like, I can't believe it is so much money. Like, it's for a QRP radio that you take into the field. This is a ridiculous amount of money, because I know it's going to sit there. I've got it turned on now, but it's going to sit there for weeks and weeks at a time. All right, this big investment. And for me, okay, maybe I'm a cheap ham, and maybe I'm a bit of a Luddite, so I'm not enamored with fish finders. I'm just going to put it out there. I know everybody has to have a color screen. Everybody has to have a fish finder. That's, so that was my initial reaction. Big
I love fish
all
finder.
kinds of technology I'm not going to use. I'm not into digital, and I know these rigs are fantastic for digital. I'm an SFB op only, and I'm not throwing shade on any other modes. Hey, maybe once I'm retired and I got a chance to play around, then I'll get into it. But you know what? Then I started to think. So honestly, I was getting burned out a couple of years ago, guys. And it's like, what do I do? Do I just stop with the YouTube stuff? Do I just, just step back because it's just too much, and I'm not feeling. And I started to reconsider the 705, and then I did one thing that changed my mind, and that was I did a currency conversion. What did an FT817 sell for when it was introduced? And what does the
Inflation
705 sell
every
for
time.
now? And then do the math to figure out relative currency. It's the same price.
Right.
I think it's about 300 over what it should be, personally.
Yeah, and
I want to say I
still
didn't
a
pay
deal,
the
though.
$13.50. It's a good radio. It's okay. I mean, it's okay.
It's a good radio. It's not a great radio, and it's not.
Right,
you know,
right.
Guys,
I don't have one.
There you go.
What
That's what
are
Jim's
your
doing.
thoughts on the 705, guys? I'm really interested to hear.
I think it's I love it. I think it's fantastic, and like everything else, there's compromises you make with any type of equipment or gear that you buy, and a lot of people are, will get upset and be like, well, it doesn't have a tuner in it, and that's a real big problem for me. And I get it, but if you know that before you buy it and you still choose to buy it, you really can't complain that it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't have one. And what's interesting, Tracy, though, is that before the 705 came out, people would hate on radios that didn't have tuners. They would be like, "This is tuned."
Yep.
705 comes out, and immediately everybody's like,
all use
"I only
resonant
use resonant
antennas.
antennas anyway." And the
Every
705 is a
YouTuber
perfect.
on air.
And all of them have a video. The next video is the tuner that Dave bought for their 705. But I really like it because I do digital modes, and I love the fact that I can do that over Wi-Fi with the radio. I love the fact that it has satellite on there for time sync, if that's something that's concerning to me.
See, that's the only two things that it has, I think, over the 991A. It's
It
Bluetooth.
could be.
It's
Well,
Bluetooth, and
the frame rate on the 991A is like once every 15
yeah, but
seconds.
who cares?
Right.
I'm making
3 to 4
contact.
a
You're
day.
call-
I
you're
like the
calling
fish.
me,
I like the
dude.
fish
You're
finder. I think it's
calling
pretty.
me.
I love it.
But for less money, a 991A gives you 100 watts. It gives you 50 on 2 and 70,
And
a
don't
back
forget
end.
your single sideband on 2 meters.
and
So-
single side band on 2 meters, which the 705 would do. I'll probably take it out one of these days and do some single side because we
The
have that in
991A
California.
is a great radio. Could you imagine if they, modernized it and
To a
released it
710.
again?
I know.
The
I get
771A.
the feeling on Steve on the 991A. And Chuck, I know you had one. I get the feeling it's going to be a classic. It strikes me that it's got
already is.
it's actually a really good radio, and it's kind of underappreciated
The
for
A
its
models.
capability on all the bands across its. It's got that 3 kilohertz roofing filter built in. I kind of think that when it gets discontinued, and it might be for like the next generation
Soon.
replacement, it might be around for a while and a sought after item.
Yeah, well, once
they're like-
it's discontinued,
Yeah,
people are going to go
15
crazy for them because that's
1500
exactly
to
what happened
2000.
with the 817. So before the 817 was
857
discontinued,
too.
everybody would be like, "Oh man, the screen's too small," and this and that. The second they're discontinued, everybody's like, "Vintage gear, click here." I've got the 817 and I'm old school.
Yeah, I'd buy the 991A if it was already discontinued.
Right.
So you could make fun of people who didn't
I
get
really
it-
do
get
hope
in
they
on
bring
it.
it out in the 710 chassis because it's the same size, like I said before.
I
and
feel like it's a a
710
2000
is
era's
just
radio, and
farther.
it's 2024.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a 100-watt Shack in a Box, pretty desk radio. That'd be awesome.
Who knows? They may even bring it out with a. Well, I would think they do the 710 because of it's a full SDR. There's not as many parts inside the radio, right?
You say
compared to
you're
this-
going
the
to get
10.
a 710A? Is that what they're going to do? Pack an A on?
I don't
it?
know. We know John pretty
No,
well,
'cause
and he is so
He
tight.
won't. He's tight-lipped. Yeah.
When he
You gotta
walks, he
add the,
squeaks.
270 into it.
Yeah.
We got Tim over here. He's saying that the 710's a better choice for HF than the 991A.
Hey Tim, how's it going?
I agree.
I think that part of though is that the Shack in a Box. A lot of people were really really drawn to that. That's another thing. Before the 705 came out, people would be like, "Well, you just shouldn't buy a Shack in a Box radio because
Right,
it tries to
right,
be everything
exactly.
and it's nothing." 705 comes out and everybody's like, "Oh, this is a Shack in a Box, which is the golden standard for amateur radio, especially if you're field operating."
Well, if it's not
What's
if it's
fun?
not ahead of the 991A, then they did a terrible job.
Well,
Right.
I'm
because
interested in
it's
seeing
so
the
much
Yaesu,
newer radio.
the Yaesu. What is it? The XRF1AB. I don't even know the name of it,
I
Right.
should learn I should learn the name now because.
but I'm really
The-
excited to see what that one's gonna be
Every
like.
Go box I see that's got a 991A in it also has a 270 rig in it sitting next to it. So that's the part that confuses me.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
because
like
you can
extra
use them for
weight
different
no
things.
reason.
I think
I
these
guess
guys
if you
with
want
Go
APRS
boxes.
running on one radio and you still want to talk on 2 meters on another radio, but
APRS.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm just calm down, old
Wait,
man.
that sounds
no
like
more
photo
radio.
activators. I need my antenna's got to be a quick deploy, but hold on, let me get my solar panels out. Let me get my APRS going so I can get my.
I'm
so I can
Tracy's
get
got
So
it
everybody can
nailed.
find
With
me.
use a battery and get a quick deploy antenna and move on with your life instead of solar panels and everything else. Yeah.
My Poseidon I can have up in 5 minutes
Nice.
or less.
Oh yeah, the Poseidon is
It's super easy.
fast.
It takes longer to push the pole up though, Mo, 'cause then to get the whole thing set
I
up. Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
leave
yeah.
that
Whatever. I know you are. So
your
we,
mom didn't.
Oh, jeez.
oh my gosh, here we go.
Look at that
I think we
mustache.
started-
I
we-
mean,
we
that's
started to bring
formidable.
this
You know?
one.
It's almost like law enforcement out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say retired police officer right
That
there.
looks like that screams 5-0 right there.
Well, let me tell you, that was remote. That's at Lake Superior Provincial Park, literally on the shore of Lake Superior. I started a quest a number of years ago to operate a portable station from the shore of every Great Lake. I've hit 4 of them so far. The only one I haven't hit is Michigan, which of course is entirely within the United States. So at one point I've got to get over to Michigan, but with every one of these activations, I won't be able to do it now, but that's the FT897 there. I've got a ground wire, a symbolic ground running out into the lake with a stake in the lake, just so that I could say done. And I did that with all the different lakes I've been to so
What
far.
time of year were you there, Tracy?
This would have been
looks
September.
cold.
Yeah,
it looks
was cold.
it looks pretty damn cold.
But that's up there it's cold. You can have cold in the middle of summer sometimes. So wonderful. Oh, and by the way, this was really cool, guys. Up here, I take a look at the beach. The beach is not sand. It's tiny little stones. So I had brought up my PVC pole mount. The intention was to put the stakes into the sand to hold up. I brought along a 30-foot fiberglass pole and an N9 SAB dipole. It was a 40-meter dipole, and I start to call CQ POTA. Nobody's coming back to me. It's low to the ground, of course. I've only got the apex up, I don't know, 20, 23 feet or something like that. And by the way, the stakes didn't hold, so I had to jury rig with a bunch of rocks and other stuff. That I should have got that on film. But I ended up I got to make some contact, so I went over to Mid Cars. Got the guys on there. Man, those guys were hilarious. They were fun to engage with. They were all making fun of me being out on the shore in the middle of a cold
So they weren't
day.
real hams.
but that was a great experience as all. Oh, and if I can tell you just one more anecdote. Lake Erie, I'm set up, and it was early April, still snow on the ground. I'm set up there and working a POTA on 80 meters. I actually got an 80-meter antenna up there and making a bunch of contacts. I had a couple of ladies walk up to me, and they're looking at my 50-foot mast and this wire coming off it. And they said, "I've never seen such a big fishing pole. What do you got? What do you think?"
I'm fishing
I've
for
had that
old
a bunch of
men.
times.
I'm fishing for old men.
I'm down at the bay by my house. I live like a mile from the bay, and I had the same thing. I had my 10-meter pole up, and people are I'm 50 feet from the freaking water, right? And they ask me, "What are you catching today?" I'm like, "Ham radio
Humans.
connections, humans. I don't know. I'm not fishing." But everybody
Aliens.
thinks it's a fish. It is a fishing pole, so they
is.
are partly correct. It's just that when you're that far away from the water, you're probably not fishing.
And let me make one comment here. This is something that a lot of YouTubers, when they watch the videos, they may not be aware of. Now, we know about, guys running out there with compromised antennas, running higher power to overcome that. But something you may not be aware of. You see these guys that are along the coasts, all right? they don't realize, a guy who's inland like I am, and I refer to the Great Lakes as inland because it's not salt water. They don't
Right.
realize that when you're sitting next to salt water, that's your amplifier right there.
Right.
So all those great contacts, if somebody's in Iowa and they're expecting to make the same contacts that somebody out in the California coast or North Carolina or wherever, with the same type of system, it could be in for a bit of a disappointment. So here I am sitting next to this great body of water. The RF didn't care. It was there's no advantage there.
I forgot to mention that maybe I did carry that 5-element Yagi that day to Japan because I was on the ocean, well, the bay, same thing.
Well,
There, especially there because it is.
What's crazy about that is a lot of people will operate QRP from the beach, right? And then
right.
be, hey, QRP is, and I'm not hating on it, but they're like, and it's awesome, but not contextually aware that, hey, the salt water's doing a little bit of help there too, right?
Or do a video with your 705, the hottest radio out at the time, hooked to a hex beam, and look at these contacts I'm making. Well, yeah, you got a hex beam hooked to it. You're not putting out 10 watts now, technically, on your signal, anyhow.
Well, it's the whole ERP versus PEP, right?
Right. That's great. You should come.
Well, you're really young in that picture.
America. You should come to America, and we could do Lake Michigan. We all meet.
Sorry, Chuck.
You should come to America, and we'll all do Lake Michigan. Even Jim. We'll bring Jim up there. And
Guys, I've been waiting. I've been actually waiting for somebody like that to say something. And
I'm a long
love
ways
to have
away,
some
though.
American hams join me.
I
Let's do
could
it.
drive there. It'd take most of a day, half a day.
That's all.
Where are you at, Jim?
I'm in Montgomery, Alabama area.
Holy smokes.
Southeast.
It only
Yeah.
takes a
So
day.
Michigan's the one near Chicago, right?
Yeah, Chicago would take about 13 hours to get
Jim
to
gets a little
Chicago.
angry when he drives.
No, I love
day.
driving.
He's talking
love
8
road
day,
rage.
though.
Hey, so speaking, when we meet up with Jim down in Florida for Orlando Hamcation, what's the
Gonna need
over
backup
under?
transportation. Yeah.
What's the over under on broken windows on this truck?
We keep.
I'm
okay,
going
we,
with 3.
We
We
keep
keep K8
Dahlhofer out of
AMRD
my
out
truck.
of it.
That is the
Yeah.
rule. No Dahlhofers in my truck.
Sorry, dude.
Or
You know
if
what really
he
calms-
does,
Ride with
he
you?
rides in the back.
Yeah.
Right.
Go-
You know what really
Chuck, can
calms
I-
Jim down on a long car trip is having Chuck in the passenger seat.
Oh my God, he
Sweet
can't. He
Jesus,
can't
God,
drive and
no.
talk.
No, I could drive and
My
talk.
God,
It was
you should have.
somebody in
You
the
should
truck
have.
wouldn't
You
stop
should have
talking.
done what I did as a coach of
Well, it was
young
drive,
high
talk,
school
and smoke
girls.
in Newport.
You talk about talk, man. I had 2 or 3 high school girls going to our soccer games. It's like, oh my God, let's turn the music up, girls. Ladies, I always call them ladies.
So
There's
what
our
are we
buddy.
looking at in this picture here? This is
7-3 hams radio.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is
he's got some old radios.
SGC 2020. These were manufactured back in the 90s by an American company, SGC, and they made
Back when you
commercial,
could do that kind of thing.
marine radios, but they also did some ham stuff. And this is one of their ham rigs. This is a 20-watt HF transceiver, covers all the bands from 160 up to 10. Kind of an odd radio. But look at this construction on this thing. I mean, that's an all metal case. I suspect you could, though I don't want to trust it. I suspect you could run a car over this thing. And look at the rubberized knob. It's rubberized buttons on it. This thing is built
it two-piece?
to a really high standard. No, so that's the matching tuner for it down below.
Okay.
External tuner. But these things, I had, I learned about these back around the turn of the century, 1999, 2000. I think I'd seen them.
The turn of the
advertised
century
in
is
US.
2000. That's hilarious.
Yeah, well,
True.
I guess
It's true.
Yeah,
It reminds me of SBE in the CB world because they were
Yeah.
American made and they made like super high quality radios, but nobody knew about them.
Mm-hmm. So, do you notice the front flip stand on it? This was patterned after a QRP rig, QRP Plus, I think it was called, that had been made by an individual who went on to work for SGC, and they just brought that design and his basic design, which was good enough to be created into this commercial product. what a fun radio. I mean, it's got a DSP noise reduction in it. Guys, I'm telling you, it stands up to anything available on
Sure is,
any
Mike.
rig today. Incredible.
Look at that
Yes,
microphone.
and yes,
It's
Mike,
just
that is a mag loop in the background. Um,
oh yeah. Good
this is
eyes,
a
Mike.
fun rig. The audio coming out of it is beautiful. They've got a special audio processing circuitry in it. Vogad, I think is the acronym, and I've forgotten what it stands for, but it's punchy. And while they call it 20 watts, it actually puts out probably somewhere around 30 watts on 40 and 20. And as you get higher in frequency up towards 10 meters, it's down to around 12 watts. I ran a bunch of stations on this one and the most recent CQ Worldwide single sideband contest. Fun radio. And
So
oh my
Tracy,
God.
you like to sell your radios when you get a little tired of them, and I know Jim hasn't bought anything on stream yet. So how much is this one for sale?
He did.
So
He did
I
buy
have
something today.
I have learned, and so I bought this at Dayton last year. It was a funny story. By Friday afternoon, we've pretty much seen the show. I talked to my buddy I'm down there with, and I say, let's just head out Saturday morning. Let's just head back home, long drive home. And he said, I think I'd like to go back. I said, okay, sure, we'll go back for a few hours. And walking down the very first aisle, I see this thing. There's a fella there. He's a nice fellow, a doctor, a ham from New York, retired. Have a nice chat with him. He wants, what was it, 300 and I think he wanted
Wow.
$350 for it. I talk him down because I'm a ham. I talk him down to
He's buying it.
$275. It's in really nice condition. This guy seems as legitimate as can be. Of course, you always have to be careful at those types of scenarios. Who are you dealing with? And does the guy look shady or not? Do you get those negative vibes? So I scoop it off him, shake his hand. Walking down the very next aisle, my buddy says, "Geez, do you think you can get the matching tuner for it?" I said, "Randy, those things are there's no way they're unavailable." Walking down the very next aisle, there's a guy with the tuner. And he wants $125 for it. Now, I got to tell you about my buddy Randy, VE30ZR. He doesn't have a wallet. He carries around his cards and his cash in a Ziploc bag. And he does this because everywhere he goes, he wants a deal. So he doesn't even have a wallet. And he's
one of those guys.
Really good at
I got this much cash.
I said, "Randy, do your magic. See what this guy will take for the tuner." And I know I want it anyway, right? So he goes. They start. This guy's got a bunch of old audio books on cassette. Civil War era and other. So he starts chatting him up about this stuff, and then he comes around to the tuner. I got that tuner for $55, and I come back home, post a video on it, and I'm getting all these comments. Where the hell did you get that? That thing is unobtainium. How much did you pay for it? And I told in the video, I said, well, here's how much I paid for it. And the people are falling off their chairs because this is a much sought after item. So I'm not going to be selling this one.
I think Jim just bought the one off of eBay anyway.
No, Jim did not buy it.
So it's funny because
like whetting y'all's appetite
as part of the negotiation process at the Hamfest, when I'm always like, well, how do I know if it's going to work or not? And they're like, oh, I guarantee it. And I'm like, well, hold on, let me take your picture. I was like, that way I can track you down.
Good strategy.
But yeah, that's always a good time. It's an awesome story.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I don't know what to look for sometimes in older radios. Because I know my buddy Gary, he's at Dayton, so I could probably take him around and probably find something really good because he knows old stuff, old radios and stuff. But like you say, you never know what you're buying, and a lot of old stuff. If it hasn't been powered up in a long time, it may have problems once you power. It might have worked the last time the guy used it, but it may not work when you power it up.
That guy is on another stream right now. This son of a bitch got that radio. Oh, man.
He talked me down on the cassettes.
He's a rich ham YouTuber. Yeah. That's a great story. Jim's bought a lot of stuff at hams at our shows and stuff, right, Jim?
Yeah, you'd never know though.
Yeah, he doesn't do videos on them, but he wants a lot of stuff.
Look, it's a radio. It has knobs.
Yeah.
I thought you liked radio.
I do like radio.
He just sounded like
'Cause
doing videos about radios.
I'm
thought
like,
about-
what, it's never mind.
Yeah, I thought about looking for an older 2-meter radio that does sideband, just like a 2-meter radio, because they used to sell those, but I have no clue of which. I think Yaesu made some, and Icon.
Well, the
probably made some.
857D
I've got that.
does sideband.
I'm talking
right,
about.
on
I'm
2
talking about
meters?
just a plain 2-meter, like the 9700 type. They used to
Well,
make
it's like-
radios
Okay.
like that.
Well, Yaesu's releasing some UHF and
Almost.
VHF radios, and everybody's like, "Well, are they going to do single sideband?" And I'm like, "When was the last time somebody came out with a UHF VHF single sideband radio? And do you think it's going to start now?" It's a shame because it is fun, right? And the thing is that 220 is the other one. There's certain things that
Oh,
hams
yeah.
are willing to just walk away from. The manufacturers are not gonna put it out there for us.
Yes.
220 is a shame. It really is. It's like if they would only release a few, the big manufacturers. Baofeng.
Baofeng
Don't get me
220
started
right
on
there.
Chinese radios, guys.
But see, I think those
Yeah.
those Baofangs happen to do 220. They're not designed
Right.
to do 220.
Right.
They happen to do 2
Well, they
meters also.
happen to-
They ain't designed for that.
Exactly. They happen to do ham radio.
Marvin has. So I saw Andy Cowley has 2 of those SGC tuners, and apparently so does Mr. Dreesen.
wow.
So SGC made a line of tuners. And that 237 is not the same one that you saw there. The SG 237, many of the other ones that they made were designed to be at the antenna, at the feed point. So the one I've got is designed to be in the shack. So the other ones are weatherproof. They were designed for use on boats. So they're well-built enclosures, kind of like the ICOM AH series tuners, and I think Yaesu even has one. But they had a great reputation back then. That Mac 200 tuner, that's with my 2020, not such a very spotty reputation. Some people it worked really well for, others it didn't. But guys, do you ever notice this? When it comes to automatic tuners, there's a lot of people I think out there that just don't really know how to use them, and so they badmouth them. Thoughts?
Badmouth the
Agreed.
automatic tuners
Yeah, like whatever brand of whatever automatic tuner they bought, it didn't work, didn't do what they were
Excuse me.
wanting it to do, and so they badmouth it. And I always find myself when I hear that, it's like, am I getting the full story here? Because I have a feeling there could be some operator error involved.
Well, I think that you're always going to get the poor carpenter blames their tools scenario, regardless of if it's
Here we
antenna,
go.
transmission line, radio, whatever it is. So I definitely think that you do get some of that in there. It's funny because like over the last year, I started using manual tuners more and more and more, and I just do it to be basically an ass, right? I'm like, look, I'm an
Oh,
elitist.
Jesus.
What?
I'm an elitist,
What?
and you're
I
not.
Can we
didn't
and I
know
use a
that.
replay?
manual
Instant
tuner.
replay.
But
This will be a short in 5 minutes.
But the reality is that when I got to be a ham, I didn't
Yeah,
want a
right.
manual tuner because I was like, this adds complexity and learning curve, and auto tuners are a great solution for that.
Yeah, just push a
Chris
button.
Frickers. But yeah, I think you're right, and it's not just tuners; it's anything. People will badmouth it if they have trouble with it.
I don't understand why. I mean, can't you put out, like, when you hit the tune button, you put out this beep that everybody hears on the remote end? Can't
Right.
you put out silence that's still got power, that's like sub-audible, and tune that?
Well, you could use I suppose you could use an audio frequency that is not detectable
People
to the
can't
human ear,
hear.
Right.
Audio.
Yeah.
but you're
Oh.
modulating that on top of
Audio.
another frequency, which would still cause interference, though, right? Like,
But not as much. I mean, it's like, hearing a pileup when someone responds to your CQ call.
Well-
You hear them all intermingle.
You get the anti-poto wackadoodles who sit there and do nothing but tune on top of somebody trying to operate. And it's like,
right.
what an ass.
I always turn down to like 5 watts.
Go to 80
just do
meters.
that if
That's where
I have to.
non-POTA
Well,
people belong.
the beauty of tunable notch filters, I drive the notch filter right over the top of the jackass.
Yeah, just hit that auto notch button. Done.
That's why I tune it 4K wide.
There you go. That'll
right.
solve the problem.
Full power.
Why not just go to 5, man?
FM.
I do 5.
Capture effect.
We got guys down here on 40 at night, and people complain about it, but there's nobody else on the band. I'm like, who cares if they're at 5 wide? and they're not interfering with anybody because there's nobody else on. I mean, you might find 2 other people on the whole 40-meter band at the time, and they do sound good. I'll tell you.
Well, I think that we're probably about
Right.
at the time here.
Yeah.
Getting there. We really appreciate you coming on, Tracy. And hey, maybe we'll set up that Lake Michigan thing one of these days.
That would be very cool,
Yeah,
guys.
let me know.
Thanks for
Are you
having
going
me.
to
Listen, if
Are you
you
going to
got-
Dayton this year?
I will drive up to Lake Michigan to POTA with you guys. I'm in.
Goodness.
Get out.
Jim
in.
outdoors.
All right.
No, I'd be
bring
back
every
in Chicago
antenna
where I
we
can
make.
get real pizza and decent Italian food.
Jim outdoors
go.
on the air.
You can't get
I
that in
haven't-
Alabama?
What? No.
Mail order.
Italian food?
No, not unless I order it from Chicago.
It's
Well, Jim, you're
spaghetti
gonna have to
with
pick the
ketchup.
restaurant, so we
I
know it's
will.
up to your standards.
Unfortunately,
burger
it's in
place.
a very blue state, so I don't know that I'm gonna
Oh,
have
I don't care about that.
to- Okay.
That's why they call it concealed.
They won't
Jim.
hurt you. Do you, Tracy, are you going to Dayton this year?
You know, I've been looking for a reason to go, and I hadn't found
Us.
one yet.
Your best friends here.
Right here.
Well, okay, you
Here
guys
we
are
are.
talking me into it. Thank
Tracy,
you.
if we
need to
work
do
this right, we could all hang out at Dayton, and then we could go.
Have a pork chop sandwich.
Yeah, it's the only reason to go to Dayton, and
Wow.
then we could all drive over to Lake Michigan and do our POTA from Lake Michigan.
Wow, that's
See,
awesome.
my wife's all in for this because her brother lives in Chicago, and I just drop her off there. Yep, she's all for it. I bet you right now.
Thank you, Mike.
Tell us, Kathy.
But
Oh, she's
I think
listening.
we're going to ask to reserve the right to bring you back at a future date. I don't know if we
Yeah.
covered everything
We
we,
didn't
want to
finish
talk
everything.
about.
He's still got
Definitely-
more slides. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you being
Tracy's
here.
done way too much. I mean, he's been a ham longer than probably anybody here. Right?
Okay, Marvin, let's not get crazy. That is way too far north for Jim.
Right.
Kathy says yes. It's a
Kathy,
think
Chuck
so.
won't be there, but Kathy will be there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kathy's a
February,
good.
yeah, that-
Kathy actually did my log for me one time. That was nice.
Nice.
You need to get Kathy to key up and call, then you get way more contact.
I got to get Mrs. Tio to help me log.
You know what? I called 20 watts out the other day from the ocean. My first call, somebody came back to me, which I couldn't believe because I didn't spot.
They probably thought it was
And then,
distress
and then the
signal.
second call came right back to me too. So,
Wow.
and then it was. I've never had that happen on a other than the time that my buddy and I were both portable, and I was in the park because I was in a forest, and we went portable or mobile to mobile. Other than that, I've never had that happen before. So, and then it
That's
was a
fantastic.
pile up after that, so that was good. Somebody
good
did.
one.
I think I did get spotted eventually because Abe said he saw me on there.
I did.
Well done.
All right. Well, Tracy, we really appreciate you coming, and
Yeah,
a lot
thank
of
you.
people in here to watch it today. So I know you have a lot of fans out there.
You're on
Yeah,
our
and
call
if you-
list, Tracy. So
And if you
be
guys
prepared
just
at
don't know
any time.
anything, if you guys don't know anything about Ham Radio YouTube, look him up because if you don't, you obviously haven't found one of the right guys.
You're missing out.
Yep, Outdoors on the Air, VE3TWM. I had to look up his call sign. I couldn't remember your call sign.
Thank goodness he
Victor
doesn't
Echo
have it
3,
up on the
tomatoes
screen, Chuck.
with mayonnaise, or talking while mumbling. How's that?
There you go. I like that.
New Glarus makes
I love
a
those guys.
TWM
I
beer.
love those guys. Would you give them your call sign? They can immediately come up with something for it. You know, have you ever got that guy that you give him your call sign, he comes back with a what do you call those?
All right,
I
so
think
bye,
that-
everybody. I'm going to hit the button.
Bye. He's hitting the button.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Really appreciate
Thank you, Tracy.